If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Hello and welcome to Imp's Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review, give a donation directly through Red Circle, and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. A link is in the description. Read the Social Suplex newsletter. Shout out to Trish and Tim as always, and to every person who's contributed so far. Order our merch from chopped-tees.com. Thank you to Dickie. The store is unfortunately closing soon thanks to the Trump tariff, so if you do want to get some very high quality merch, and I've given a first person anecdote just how good this quality of the merch is. Now's your time to do it as these closing days of the store. And listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, and Sam Brown's AEW Match Guide. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the AEW week that was. 30 minutes of Dynamite and Collision from Boston, Massachusetts before Full Gear from Newark, New Jersey. There's a F-ton to get through on this show, so you know what, let's not beat around the bush or anything. Very quickly, playing the sound clip almost immediately. Jumping straight through into Dynamite and Collision. I'm going to try and do it as a quick run through of the Wednesday night happenings before I bang on about the pay-per-view show. So treat this as like a little setup before we actually get to the main event course. Nom. Fair to say, quite a bit to talk about with the Full Gear pay-per-view, because there is talking points. Things happened on that show. So anyway, let's jump on over and we'll play a sound clip from something that's relevant to the Full Gear pay-per-view. The match is for the number 1 and number 2 spots in the Casino Gauntlet. Bobby Lee Lashley versus Ricochet.
Lashley now building up momentum and the spear! 1, 2, 3!
Yes, that's right, we had Hurt Syndicate members in 2 matches to go. There's number 1 and number 2 spots. The first one, dickhead Ricochet immediately grabbed the mic just to cut jabber about the Philly Eagles and his hot wife, before remembering MVP called it the International Championship, and that deserves to be ribbed on. That's all the proof that Ricky needed that old P is getting too old. Shut the F up as he went on for it felt like 3 minutes straight, just constantly talking. And commentary afterwards were like, didn't feel like he was ever going to stop talking. He's got an ability just to keep on going. And everything eventually frothed up into a big pop as Lashley hoisted Ricochet out of the ring. With the dickhead still talking the entire time he crashed onto his stablemate's ringside. I'm just like, yes. If there's one thing about the guy who continuously keeps talking, it's when the action starts, he keeps talking. He doesn't stop because, okay, now it's action time. No. He keeps talking. He keeps going. You'll see the same about Full Gear. He'll keep on going. He won't stop. The match itself, big lad versus little lad, speed versus power, muscle man versus dickhead. Didn't take long till Ricochet was spinning inside out off of Bobby Lee Lashley's spear. And so that was number 1 of the officially hurting people in the Gauntlet match. The second one was Shelton Benjamin versus Mike Bailey. I do like how the format of the Gauntlet means you have the exact opposite draw hopes, with the earlier numbers having the best advantage to just finish the match before anyone else gets in. Here we had 2 lads with the good kicks, but Shelton's got the good tosses too, and my god did he throw with a great get off me towards the end. Benjamin's thrust kick so awesome that Bailey didn't kick out and P was up on his feet. Either that or ref Turner read the finish wrong. No fear, Shelton tossed, kneed, a thrust kick again to send us home, which sets us up for the National Championship, and we'll talk about that when we get to the pay-per-view. Backstage bits just to blast through 5 quick segments. A wee interview with Harley and Willow, the Babes of Wrath. Talked jabber on the Sisters of Sin before their tag tournament match next week, and after the bloody blood cage last. Julia Hart and Sky Blue got the reply later, as it hit me, I visually like their act, but when they're doing the speaking in sync bit, for me doesn't work. It just feels a bit too corny. I like my wrestling to be corny, I like my wrestling to be camp. Come on guys, not take it all too seriously all the time. I like this shit. I like this nonsense stuff. But whilst they're delivering their lines, trying to speak in unison, it just comes off a bit crap. It's like, that's a shame, because it visually all works. And it works when Tekkla's speaking, but as soon as Sky Blue and Julia Hart's trying to do their deadpan, non-emotional speaky bit, it just comes across a bit crap, which is a shame. There's probably a way to do this, but currently what they're doing, they've not figured it out yet. Everything else about the act, nailing it. Awesome, totally in on it. It's literally just the promo speaking thing. Speaking of tag teams, Rodido cut a wee backstage promo, promised to beat FTR at Full Gear. FTR themselves got some time later. A moment amongst the storm. The Grand Mars and the Steamboats are all safe. Cal Fletcher and Mark Briscoe interviewed backstage by 8 Out. Asked why on earth both the lads agreed to the stipulations for their Full Gear match. Briscoe's going to make his family proud. Okada and Hechicero jumped with Kyle having agreed to no physicality. Don Callis promised to make Mark's kids orphans. Like, bloody hell, mate. That's had too far. Speaking of going far, Pat got a promo challenging Darby to a straight-up wrestle, out to prove Allin's not all that by stripping away all the bells and whistles, challenging as a proper athlete, a real competitor. And we'll get to that on the pay-per-view. Juice and Notting Gun excited for their 200k tag on the Tailgate Brawl. Austin had words he wanted to say, but Juice was just far too focused on being responsible with that money. Austin pretty much doing your ordinary pre-pay-per-view, pre-special match hype, being like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to beat everybody. And then Juice Robinson were like, oh yes, I'm going to invest that in my 401k. Ooh. Just like being really responsible with his money. Oh, I'm going to invest that in my future. That's just not your normal wrestling promo subject matter, but he delivered it in the same level as hype as what you would normally do. I'm happy that nonsense Juice is back. Stripping away all of the crazy was like, oh, but now you're just a bland flat nothing. But you know, you re-inject that crazy and it's immediately there, it works, it's fine. And then we got a wee little warm-up tag match, the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander versus Skyflight. The Bucks watched a video of their Full Gear highlights, their match versus FTR, their trios tagging with Omega. That was it, that was the end of the highlights. Like, surely they had more. Don Callis with a quick hello and amp up before announcing them out with the big music and pyro, calling them Matthew and Nicholas and all. A wee reminder of Nick Jackson versus Dante Martin magic in the middle of our pay-per-view warm-up trios. Top Flight were given the air to fly. It's been so long since the Martins won Dynamite properly that Dante springing moonsault and rope hop dodge got huge reactions. Also, of all people for Josh Alexander to hone an ankle lock on. It's like, yep, I know it wasn't his ankle that he broke, but wrestling logic dictates the whole leg counts. It does count. Meltzer driver, but Josh Alexander demanded the win via the ankle talk. After the match, Don Callis had something important to say. Father Don, all excited to announce Matt and Nick joining. Their reaction said otherwise, but before they could answer, are you ready for this? Kenny, in a beat-em-up, attacked all the family goons. Hilariously, Hechicero protected Don like a bodyguard, getting him out of there. Don stopped Josh's fellow Canadian beating, gave the room for the Bucks to trigger Kenny in the face. Slow and reluctant, but Tarzan Boy played before they could make a decision. Jack Perry with a big old shovel, Luchasaurus with a vacuum cleaner. I will add a colour-coded vacuum cleaner. It had a green wire like he has a green mask. So you can say many things about wrestlers, but if you give them a line of vacuum cleaners, they will be able to pick out the one that matches their ring gear. It's a very specific scenario, but they will be able to do it. Later in the show, Kenny and the Express cut a wee backstage promo, promised that no amount of money is going to stop the beating that's coming to Alexander and the Bucks. I did also forget that this match was for $1 million, because of course it is, Tony. Of course it is, for their big money match. Death Riders John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli versus Roddy Strong and Orange Cassidy of the conglomeration. A wee Death Rider tag to kick off hour 2. Danielson on commentary was loud about how Shafir was the one who got her team the victory, whilst Mox was the one who tapped out for the loss. Orange immediately amped Mox into a punchy, chargy brawl, letting Claudio and Roddy have their little wrestle. We're now in a position where any submission on Mox gets a huge reaction. The benefits of losing. Other people take note. Now his matches get even larger responses, and he's just as big a star. Cassidy had Mox rocked, but Wheeler Yuta sprang in as a dickhead. Orange choked out by Papa Mox, but it was off the other's hard work. Cassidy was already out after Claudio's pop-up uppercut. No post-match shenanigans. Kyle O'Reilly ran out to make sure of that and went straight for John's ankle. Yuta and Garcia completely unable to kick O'Reilly hard enough to get him to stop, needing Claudio to get him out of the conglomeration's hold. Kyle with the mic, I want to fight you at Full Gear, John. And with his newfound taste for blood, he wanted no holds barred, promising to make him tap out again. Such great stuff, amping O'Reilly up into a worthy pay-per-view match. Just well done everybody on this quick little build. Quite often with AEW, if it's like a quick, snappy, heated build, they're sometimes my favourites. Like I was applauding Hangman and Joe when I thought it was just like a quick little bubble build. Like the Punk and Eddie Kingston is like my go-to example. Sometimes it's very blatant, 3 weeks and we're there. Don't overthink it. And it would be your standard, this happens week 1, week 2, week 3, kind of escalation. Sometimes you don't need to overthink it. And with this Kyle O'Reilly, John Moxley one, oh yes, there was a massive blood and guts match. But if you go by the escalation, it's something that it's just such a simple thing to do. It just works so incredibly well. And it's immediately elevated Kyle O'Reilly to such a huge degree from where he was beforehand. So round of applause all around. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to Full Gear. The Women's Tag Team Tournament, Timeless Love Bombs versus Alex Windsor and Rio. Tony and Mina out in matching fits with team music and a properly practiced dance. We know who's winning, so you might as well make a show of it. Hey, Rio and Windsor, they were in matching red and gold gear, but the other team had a dance, and it continued in the ring. So, you know, I know that doesn't secure victory in Stardom, but I like to think that here in America, and yeah, I enjoyed this match. On a different week, I'd give it more time to jabber on about, but it was a really fun tag team tournament match. Rio got the assisted dive ad break cheer, but they were all applauding after a Mina sharpshooter on Rio got broken up by Storm and Windsor headbutting each other and both just collapsed to break the hold. Hip attacks in stereo, then a wee Storm Zero for the win. Really fun tag. He had way more great moments than I was able to just say there, because I want to get through it because I've got to talk about Full Gear. But it was a match I genuinely really enjoyed. Sticking on the women's tag team tournament, Megan Bain and Marina Shafir versus Tay J. A lovely judo throw play between Mello and Shafir. Anna J officially dead after Mother's Milk. Again, different week, I would give it more time. Tony and Mina appeared on the Tron after, teasing that they will win the 4-way match at Full Gear, where the winner will get to pick the stipulation for their match. The lovers made it clear just how wild stipulations they were thinking about. Taipei death match, chicken coop match. There was some interesting ideas thrown out there. And the Dynamite main event, Hangman Page versus Katsuyori Shibata. Samoa Joe and commentary for a match where I look at the people wrestling and I just remind myself that it's kind of wild that I get to see this on America telly. Page jumped out of the crowd to blindside Shibata and serve as a livid Joe who couldn't attack. Joe was on commentary, the biggest hearty laugh whenever his man did anything to hangers. A good a time as any to go back and watch Shibata's surprise return in 2017. Some people watch Fox and the Hound or Bambi to get the feels. I watch a Japanese wrestler returning at Ryogoku Gakugan. Oh, it gets me every time. It gets me every time. Incredible finish to the match. Shibata ankle lock, but the boot came off, and after a lamping, the boot went flying up into a perfect catch from hangers and a buckshot to follow. No matter what happens on Full Gear, that was cool. That was arguably the peak of his championship reign, with everybody in the crowd respecting him. He has reached that point as a respected character, especially a champion, and whilst he's in that state, boot comes off, flies into the air, and he catches it perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. A man on top of his game. Kicked off the third hour with a payback dick kick from the champion, before staring down his opponent with the 3 words. On commentary, with all but a poncho on your head, but you are all alone now. Claimed to have sent Hobbs to the hospital and Shibata to a dick surgeon, which of course got a loud dick surgeon chant. Hangers reminded Joe of how far he went the last time he was in a steel cage. A warning of what that means if Joe pushes him to do it again. When I watched that segment, you know, I had some really positive thoughts going into it, and it's fair to say that so much happened regarding that main event that I have to just discard those thoughts and we'll talk about it when we get to the main event of Full Gear. Because it's fair to say, any thoughts about how I thought that closing segment was building up different characters, I was completely wrong. We'll talk about it when we get to it. On to the collision segment of the show. You can always tell when it's switched over to the collision segment, mostly because the luchadors come out. Oh, who are these guys? It's time for collision. Double Jeopardy match, Kazuchika Okada versus Mascara Dorada. A wee return to 2 lads who tore up the place back at All Out. Always a joy to watch Dorada do his Rana. Although his 450 splash landed hard with an amazing fish on dry land sell after landing a tad on his shoulder. An outstanding finish too. Top rope Rana blocked into an oof powerbomb high on the shoulders. That was easily it for Dorada. After the match, Don announced a CMLL World Trios Championship match for the Tailgate Brawl. El Sky Team versus Okada, Hechicero and Konosuke Takeshita. And the main event, the Ring of Honor Women's TV Championship, Red Velvet versus Mercedes Moné. Red Velvet's match fit again. Let's get that interim nonsense off of Boston's own. And what a wee telematch this was. Mercedes did so much to show the AEW audience exactly why Red Velvet was the Ring of Honor TV champion. Because I'm assuming most of the audience hasn't watched Velvet since her Jade Cargill stable days. Like, to be fair, I only saw her because Bandido's drawn my occasional attention to Ring of Honor over the year. Also, lol at her attempting to out-Eddie Mercedes, faked a title shot to the head to sneak a quick near fall. The crowd fully behind Mercedes, chanting 14 belts during the ad break as she did her dance aimed at Stat. Red telegraphed her punch like she's Jamie Hayter and got rightly grounded into our first statement maker. Amazing looking reversal lung blowing Velvet out of her tarantula wraparound. The spin out of the corner bomb looked awesome too, seemingly by accident as Red held onto the ropes a tad longer than intended on the rotation. Lung blower off Brett's rope, a top tier finish. After the match, Moné posed up on the announce desk. Chris rose and walked around to pose as the confident champion, only for Mercedes to get the final say with an immediate Meteora and statement maker whilst talking shit. Baddies on top right before the pay-per-view. Maybe the goodie's got a chance, or maybe that's just Tony trying to trick me. That's the vibe I'm getting. Is Tony getting me ready for a certain result, or is he using that flow on purpose to trick me? That's the difference. Me watching wrestling about 10 years ago, what happened on the TV show basically meant nothing. It really didn't matter. Things would just get dropped, things would whatever. If something happened as a twist on the pay-per-view, it wasn't set up. If a big angle suddenly happened, it wasn't set up. Most of the time. Whilst in AEW, you can trust that they'll spend a few weeks setting up something. Very rarely in AEW does something happen and there's like no setup for it whatsoever and you're watching it going, I mean, it might be interesting, but it makes no sense at the first beat. But it might make sense later. There's none of that in AEW. But that doesn't mean it's entirely predictable, because he can then just use those flows against me. But anyway, that was Dynamite and Collision. That was a quick little going through of what happened on those TV shows before we got to the pay-per-view that is Full Gear. But before we get to the Full Gear pay-per-view, it's not time for your sound clip just yet. It's not time just yet. We've got a tailgate brawl to get through first. Let's just do a quick bish bash bosh through the pre-show bouts. 200k tag. Outrunners versus Big Bill and Brian Keith versus Bowens and Caster versus Bang Bang Gang. Dalton Castle was on commentary to explain how he and his new boys need this win after making some poor investments in Turtle Beach. Still having so much fun with the Bowens and Caster shtick, it came full focus front and centre as Caster teased the scissors, only for it to be cut off and eventually flow into Juice rolling him up for the win. Fully blaming his teammate and shouting, "Caster, where were you?" as he continues to blame everybody else. RPG Vice versus Cutie Marshall and Big Boom AJ. Our guest commentator for this one, Big Paul White Show. Oh, and Don Callis was there too, I guess. I don't think I've ever seen a celebrity become a pre-show mainstay before, but Big Boom has somehow worked that notch. And as a foreigner, his family is certainly a kind of US celebrity I don't understand, and I don't think I ever will understand. The crowds always seem to enjoy going boom, though. So, he's got a place. He's got a place. He's on a tailgate brawl show, not harming anyone. He seems to really enjoy being there. Seems to be good promotion work for AEW. Don't see any negatives on this. A repeat of All In with Trent pushing over the bigger child, but this time Paul White was on commentary to say hi-ho. Don Callis also said hello, distracting on the apron so Beretta could hit AJ with his cast for a running knee near fall, and a great cheer after Beretta's attempted distraction instead led to the big child, is he the Rizzler, hitting a diamond cutter on Rocky. Then Aaron Solo distracted for a big Paul punch to Trent. Boom! Powerbomb for the win. Fun little celebrity match. Trent Beretta seems to be great at these, and I'm sure he perfectly enjoyed pushing that big child over. I'm sure he was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to do this. Oh no, I'm having so much fun, what a shame. Hook and Eddie Kingston versus the Workhorsemen. When I'm watching this, I'm like, why is this on the show? Now this is a nothing pre-show tag if I've ever seen one. Then the main event happens, and I'm like, oh damn it, you gave a logical excuse for Hook to be in the building and for me to not super question it. Therefore, when Eddie and Hook run out in the main event, it makes perfect sense why they were there anyway. They weren't just there because of friend relationship or whatever. You could do the logic of the ops thing, but then Hanger's whole thing is he's already taken out the ops, so why would he need Eddie Kingston and Hook? But they were there for a match, they were there for a different reason. So yeah, set them up logically being there. Hook took some lampings, but no nonsense as soon as Eddie tagged in. A simple DDT ended Anthony Henry. Sometimes you don't need to overthink it, just plant his head and pin him. And the final match for this kickoff, the CMLL World Trios Championship. El Sky Team, Mascara Dorada, Neon and Mystico versus the Don Callis families Hechicero, Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita. However, we started with Nei Okada in attendance. Callis put it down to nothing to worry about, it's just travel issues. So the Don Callis lads immediately went into ringside brawl mode, Hechicero evening the odds by wrapping a chair around Mystico's arm and snapping it back. 2 minutes till the pay-per-view as Neon and Dorada did their dives. 90 seconds as we cut to the parking lot and Okada parked his car, dressed in his ring gear, leaving it running as he walked with no speed or emotion into the main show. Totally feeds into Okada's expressionless character where he just gets out of a car, leaving it running, and then emotionless walks forward. Visually it just works. But yes, they did the drip into the main show bit again. For me, it didn't work anywhere near as well as the hot fire of Jet Speed versus FTR. It meant more that the show started on a slightly awkward note and then slowly fell into gear. But the show's called Full Gear, not Fall Gear. It's Full Gear, so you have to start and go in. And Darby Allin Pac, that's a go-in match. This one, it started with a match in progress, but it was one where we were building to Okada making his entrance and the shenanigans ensuing, and eventually Mystico comes down and eventually the match gets going. It was more like a weird start, and it took the pay-per-view a little while to get going. But once we're in match 3 and match 4, this pay-per-view is on such a good level that I no longer cared. It's yeah, sure, this beginning of it didn't really hit the same immediate flow that I guess they were looking for when they did the Jet Speed and FTR match. They purposely did it differently by having Okada not be there and Mystico get taken out. We did start the show with somebody making the entrance, so you got something to go through rather than just a hot fire match. But that's Eddie again. Get to match 3 or 4. I'm loving the show so much that who gives a shit? It's enjoyable. The main show pyro outstaged by Okada's entrance as he slowly came on out to give Takeshita a middle finger to Hechicero's dismay. Mystico eventually came back to the odds evened just with a taped up arm, and this was where the match finally shifted up into gear. Plenty of Okada and Takeshita falling apart as Don watched over it. Just look at them working together. Dorado ducked the Rainmaker and Konosuke ate it, to another cheeky grin from Kazu. We got our lucha times too. Hechicero, the experienced dancer in that style, kindly volunteered to take it all. Mystico spun around, getting the better of the Magic Fireman and into the crossface submission. After the bell, Takeshita had enough of Okada on the ramp, kept apart by Callis, as he more had a grumpy, I've had enough of this face. He just went into proper sad mode, being actually sad about this now. This is just gone past anger. It's Konosuke. Oh. So hopefully on Wednesday, Don Callis will have something to try and cheer the IWGP champion up. He's been trying to cheer up Kazu. Well, he can cheer up Takeshita as well. And on to the first match proper, a Pac versus Darby Allin.
And Darby, come on! Wow! Sting's back in the head of Darby! Oh, the irony! Oh, my!
Started off with the We Geordie Wrestle Challenge. For this one, we did get a Darby video coming back to life after the burning, like Liam Neeson's Darkman. Sure, Nigel McGuinness went with The Invisible Man, but we all know which film's actually worth the rewatch. Of course, I remember about Liam Neeson in Darkman. I'm gonna rewatch Darkman. I'm gonna rewatch it. Of course, me that loves nonsense in his wrestling. Of course I love Darkman. Surely this was one of the most predictable things. Surely. Darby all taped up, giving Pac lovely targets to have happy times with. Or, you know, just press slam the wee burnt boy off the apron. Like, don't all have to be smart technical play. Yeah, just drop the fella. You're overthinking it being all technical and stuff. He's burnt. Just slam him onto the mat. It's like, oh, that's a good point. When he eventually did rip off the bandages and poke the burns, he got a "you sick fuck" chant. The craziest bump came off a strong corner whip meant to send Allin spinning ringside. Ended with a dangerous landing as he tried to not collide with a cameraman who was right up in there. Pac with a long stretch just beating up the lad. Eventually the crowd amped Darby up with "you can't kill him." Cue the torpedo dive, which would be the high spot of the momentum for others, but for Darby it's just a setup to sit a Geordie down on a chair and launch himself with a dropkick high off the top, crashing to ringside. Full action flow met with a standing ovation once back in the ring. Darby ended the flow with a running clothesline, so once back up on his feet, Pac delivered his own charged lariat to prove he's the better man. Pac was the one to fiddle with a turnbuckle, and truly brilliant wrestling logic reared its head as his kicks were met with Big Nige telling us he's got a metal plate in his foot now, of course, which I love about as much as Roman Reigns selling chops whilst wearing a tactical vest. So, oh my god, those kicks must be devastating whilst he's fully dressed, kicking him with boots. It's like, I don't think the metal plate's coming much into it, Nige. He's got thick leather boots on. I don't think it's a factor. The end sudden and flowed into the story I wasn't expecting. Pac had been Mr. Reliable for the Death Riders, but with Darby's potential ace ascent, I just assumed this was a program set to be nothing but wins for the wee guy. But no, the Scorpion Deathlock shooted in. Pac immediately waved for Yuta, who got in to distract, and the Geordie bastard grabbed a bat to wallop for the win. Commentary said it must have been hidden by Darby, specifically calling it Sting's baseball bat, but framing this as what must have been the plan the entire time for the Death Riders to get a win over the man. I'd go all in on Darby, but there is the other bubble stable narrative of loser mocks whilst Pac is racking them up. It's fair, this was a night of that. A night of, it's not what I would do, but it's not necessarily bad what you are doing. When we get to the main event, I'm so torn on it. I'm so torn on what I think about it. The 4-way tag was the second match. Winner picks their tag team tournament semi-final stipulation. Sisters of Sin versus Megan Bain and Marina Shafir versus Babes of Wrath versus Timeless Love Bombs. Time for a wee fun multi-last tag. Brawling from the get-go for 10 minutes of constant chaos. A front kick from Marina Shafir as Excalibur called all professional right after McGuinness went tits out probably wasn't wise. It's fair to say that Excalibur is a bit more awkward when it comes to sex things on commentary. Nigel McGuinness, like, she's kicked her right in the tits, that probably hurt. It's extremely different commentary from Excalibur. Like, oh, well, there she is with the stiff front kicks there. Come on, Excalibur, you can say boob. I believe in you, bud. And of course, Big Nige is a genuine fan of Harley Cameron because of her ventriloquism skills. Belly stompy times from the Spooky Gals slowed the pace down for a tad. Some actual order and anger after blind tags. Bain and Shafir with the first serious flow. Press slamming Shirakawa into the mother's milk. Tag as Tony was held back. But we finally got our pin breakups flowing and powerful lasses got their moment. Like Big Bane suplex both sisters. Pounce from Willow. Dive outside from Willow. The two left in the ring with the two Aussies. Quick pin back and forth between Tony and Harley. Eventually Harley went for something else, but Storm stayed on the pins and caught her with the big package. Just a wee fun, multi-last fun. Not our last party tag match of the show, but they're always welcome. As long as there aren't too many of them, it's absolutely fine. It's what kind of happened in that ECW arena period of AEW. Started off being like, oh my god, these tag matches are amazing. They found a new thing within the flows of their shows just to get everybody in the card and you can build so many stories off them. By week 5 or 6, it's like, oh, but no, but 2 every show and there's 2 shows a week is too much. And we'll stay on the tag team stuff. For me, this is where the show really kicked up a level. I really enjoyed these next 2 matches. The AEW Tag Team Championship, Brodido versus FTR. Is this my match of the night? I should feel like there's 2 different things. I'm doing it like I did with the Blood and Guts, where I've got my drama peak of the night, and then I've got my just standard, match of the night. I feel like this might be my match of the night, but in terms of like peak drama, or that Mox Fletcher thing was something special, or that Mox O'Reilly thing was something special, and the TD Championship had a nice moment. We'll get to all that stuff. But yes, the AEW Tag Team Championship, Brodido versus FTR. Yeah, of course this was good. Third match on the card is often killer on AEW pay-per-views, if this counts as third, given the pre-show overrun. So many great sequences, like the splash from Dash caught with a Brody hand to the throat and Bandito splashed himself onto Dax. Stoke got his spot and nearly snookered it. The son, not the murderer, pushed his FDR man out the way to catch the Brody dive instead, but nearly missed him and didn't really catch him. Fortunately, the Flow had already penned for the big tattooed fella to be down for a while to give Bandito his solo fight against the baddies. The Shatter Machine counter into a spinning DDT was bloody lovely. Back in the fight, Paul Brody charged tits first into the barricade after Cash dodged him. Naughty Wheeler grabbed the title belt. Brody's holding on ended up sending the momentum into his own mass partner and near fall. So many great near fall spots in particular. Brodito's own Shatter Machine, Doomsday Device inside out counter from Bandito. The crowd already on their feet before the Spike Power Driver was even hit for the kick out amp moment. Like, hey, they got the desired reaction, but the crowd had already risen. They were already so into it they were on their feet. Finally, one more Shatter Machine, and unfortunately Bandito wasn't invincible. FDR, tag team champions once again. You gotta set us up for Serious Adam returning for the Edge and Christian title match. You gotta get there. It's all set. That said, FDR winning those titles, this tag team run, and the run from Brodito as well, has really just restored such a great feeling amongst the tag team division. Yes, FDR won the belts. Yes, they're going to Edge and Christian, but the division as a whole feels like they're in such a better place that I'm not mad at all, and not like, oh, okay, we've had fun. Now it's time for Serious Adam. That emotion is there, but it's not overshadowing anything else. In fact, everything else is shining so brightly that doesn't dim it. Now, I feel like that's the case for me with AEW right now, because again, I go to social media, and social media is telling me that AEW is just in a bit of a lull, and WWE is the least exciting, but AEW is apparently not exciting. But I'm just having a lovely time. Like, yeah, there are some negatives, but nothing is overshadowing anything, and I'm still having a great time. Maybe this honeymoon period will run out eventually, or I'll just become Floyd and just fall eternally happy about AEW. The first ever AEW National Champion Casino Gauntlet match. This point here for me was where I was enjoying the show the most, which is weird to say because I feel like I got the most invested during John Moxley Kyle O'Reilly. But this is where I'm just flat out having the most fun. Bobby Lee Lashley's and Shelton numbers 1 and 2, a show of respect before playing at a tad of amateur sparring to kill the time. Oh god, okay, yep, get that timer up ASAP. Brian Dennison was like, what, the timer's up already? He's like, well yeah, it's 30 seconds of fuck all, get that timer up. Get it up, don't waste any time. Ricochet immediately number 3, just like on Dynamite with the mic talked bullshit so his GOA could jump. Laughs from the crowd as the dickhead kept talking between hitting MVP on the top of his head with the mic. The big hurty boy is taken out and eventually the refs came to escort Bishop and Leona to the back. So perfect to convince me, okay, we get to the end, Lashes and Benjamin gonna rise. But I'm watching this match just being like, if Lashley wins this, if this really is just a belt, give another WWE guy who won't take pins. Like somehow we've cleaned house so well, yet somehow there's still somebody there who won't take these losses. And you're going to designed him a title. We'll talk about that a bit more when the winner happens, actually. Number 4, and ooh, murmured through the crowd in a great little ripple for Claudio to enter. And Jesus Christ, what an uppercut to kill the diving Richard. Absolutely absurd. Full swing and charging uppercut to the corner as Casinelli temporarily became the greatest babyface in AEW. Number 5 for pure Ricochet frustration as a second Death Rider came on out. Daniel Garcia joined his stablemate. Crowd also helpfully pointed out that Garcia was the first non-bold participant. All information is useful information. Number 6, Orange Cassidy to just light the match up. A slap to Ricochet's bald head so Garcia could suplex the bugger. There's such a fun flow with Claudio as the big man worked as the best base for Orange to spin around. Number 7, fun's over, it's time for Wheeler Yuta. Out he comes to end the Death Rider's charge. Great with them all hitting running quarter strikes on Cassidy, only for Ricochet to run into like he's with them, and I love the overhead camera angle for this, so you saw them all running in rotation and then suddenly Ricochet's part of the rotation. I really enjoyed that. The answer was yes, they did beat him up afterwards. Number 8, Kevin Knight took out the Death Boys with his outstanding standing leaps. Number 9, Roderick Strong to break some Death Rider backs, and also Ricochet, because he deserves it. Number 10, with Don Callis' big face on the Tron, it's Mark Davies. The Aussie Bruiser drove everybody. Awful waffle variation for Ricochet, spiked for Cassidy. Number 11, Mr. Kicks, Mike Bailey. A tag friend for Kevin Knight, but then they both went for the cover. A very different sparring compared to the Hurt Syndicate piss take from the start. But they know each other too well. Dodged everything and Garcia eventually snapped in. And number 12, Matt Menard, as Garcia's eyes went wide, even if the crowd didn't immediately recognise Daddy Magic's music. In the match to solely ruin the kid's night and brawl out into the crowd, with no interest in the national championship. Then chance of meat for Claudio and Davies resurrected the Hurt Syndicate into action, tossed and launched every lad in sight, and possibly Ricochet's most unwise moment in his attempt to jump, both lads bailing and launching the dickhead. Eventually the temporary alliance between the Swiss and the Australian to break up the momentum. Fully broken down, Cassidy taken down by Wheeler Yuta to get the please no reaction, saved by Kevin Knight, but be careful what you wish for, because next thing you know, Ricochet is hitting the spirit gun and becoming the first champion. Oh wait, no, no. Oh no. A commentary on America right now, I'm sure. Being a piece of shit gets you rewarded. Ricochet is the first national champion, but I immediately saw that as, this belt is designed for Bobby Lashley. My gut reaction, I will be so happy if Ricochet gets through this still as the champion, because at the moment, it feels like you've tried to convince me this belt isn't for Bobby Lashley by giving it to somebody else he's feuding with first, so he can then beat that person. So he doesn't become the first national champion, but he does eventually win it. And I'm like, no. And you're giving it to Ricochet, but this still just feels like you brought in a belt to give to Bobby Lashley. The best way to convince me this belt isn't for him is him never winning it. That's the only way out of this. But yeah, it's very difficult to just not look at it through that lens of, oh, here's another one that won't take losses. Oh, it just happens to be another guy that's come from the same company again who won't take losses. That same scenario again. Yeah, but this feels like they realise we can't just put it straight on Bobby Lashley. We can't just do that. And if Ricochet wins, that then immediately gives a program for Bobby Lashley to win the championship through rather than winning it here. But it just screams that it's a title thing for Bobby. Are we going to immediately do it? Like, is it World's End? Is it that quick? Do we just immediately go to Lashley becoming the challenger first? Like, maybe at least give Ricochet something first? I don't know. It's difficult to get, like, super excited about it. Because short term, it just feels like about to give Bobby Lashley. Right, now on to the match where I was the most invested in the show. No holds barred, Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley. O'Reilly just seeming like a man with Mox's number in a match designed to once again establish a difference in stipulations in more than just name with these matches. When WWE were the only big game in town, every kind of no DQ basically became the exact same match. But here, Bryan Danielson was on commentary telling us the rules weren't originally about no DQ. It was about being allowed to use holds and offense not normally allowed. As Mox and O'Reilly used closed fists and clawed each other's mouths to emphasise that difference. But then Shafir handed Mox a fork to punch and rake with, so, it is no DQ. Mox was out-wrestled by O'Reilly yet again, so out came the violence so he could feel in control. And then the submission talking to show us he's better. As soon as O'Reilly went back on top, back came the fork, this time into the man's left titty. And what I was talking about earlier, with Excalibur not being the most comfortable to say certain things on commentary, and he was dared by the other commentators, like, go on, explain that. And you know what, for his credit, he did say the words, he just drove a fork into that man's nipple. He did say that. It was a well done, Excalibur, we've broken through. We've broken through. I don't know how much he was blushing whilst he said it, he did have that big mask on, can't tell, but he did say the words. Father John himself cut after a launch into the bottom turnbuckle from ringside. Like what, you couldn't have possibly thought that Kyle O'Reilly would be allowed to bleed without Mox getting in on that sweet iron too. Full panic in his eyes when O'Reilly first went for the ankle lock, immediately again going to strike with the fork. And he used it on the lad with ooh as a close-up shot captured the blood running down the death man's face, which called for Kyle to fetch a chain, and after a wee battle it was wrapped around both men's necks in a suplex. Into an improvised Texas chain rope match we swung. It again Mox lost out during submission, but it was thanks to Kyle utilising the violence via stabbing the man's hand with a fork. A chair around Kyle's bloody arm stomped. They were going to wrench it, giving Kyle a moment to make Danielson salivate by grabbing onto his own trunks to stop Mox being able to lock anything in. Chain around the foot of Mox, grounded, locked in with the ankle lock and tapped out yet again. Frustration after the match, a show of respect of sorts as he nodded his head in recognition before limping out. O'Reilly was then down, being checked on by the medical staff, and that's what angered Mox into a jump and allowed you tapped out to prove the crowd are more than smart enough to read why the Death Rider leader did that stomping. The crowd don't need to be so blatantly told why he's lashing out. What's caused the anger, what's caused that overreaction. They're smart enough. They're smart enough to follow it. And this does feel like just such a smart little story for Mox. Just a leader who is completely losing it, and he's feeling the pressure of completely losing it. And there's the silent side story. Pac is getting a lot of wins. He is that reliable guy. Mox can't stop losing. So why would the Riders keep Mox about? But yeah, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but just the way that they've elevated Kyle O'Reilly in this program has been so good. And so happy to see him actually get the win, so the story gets paid off with a long-term character boosted. Doesn't mean that he's going to be like world champion, doesn't mean he's going to be the next guy going for like the TNT championship once Briscoe stuff's done, or going for the AEW world championship or anything. But his character is elevated by this. It would be nice to see if there's, plans for after this now that he has been elevated. But the fact they did it in the first place, and it didn't just turn into like a Mox win or anything, both of their characters spin off into their own different ways. That pressure continues to mount on Mox. Hey, we're seeing it right now at Liverpool. Mox is Arnie Schlott. Like if he doesn't get a win soon, that pressure's building. Speaking of performance pressure, the no disqualification match for the TNT Championship, Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. Okay, now this was designed to be a big old brawl with full of weapons, and it was. One bloody affair after another, this time with a proper video showing Mark Briscoe as the family man, all loving with his wife and kids and chicken coop. You can't have him lose after that. And you made sure to show Fletcher having a good old long look at his title whilst posing up on the corner. Tony really trying to convince me the Aussie's losing his title to the Kentucky man, or he's just losing the title to the Kentucky man. Sometimes Sometimes you overanalyze and you overthink something. You watch it and go, there's a lot of signs here telling me that Kyle Fletcher's losing his title. So when you're watching wrestling, you're like, so I'm being tricked. He's not going to lose. No, he just lost. It's the thing I love about wrestling. You watch it, be like, you're not going to trick me. I can't be worked. That enters your brain. It's difficult for that to not enter your brain at some point whilst you're watching wrestling. I spot the things at play here. Nah, he was just losing the title. And that is an absolutely fine outcome. I'd call this your patented tired AEW crowd moment, but it wasn't like this was a match that allowed them that reprieve. It's not really that kind of show. You can't be having a rest at a show called Full Gear now, can you? Awesome catch from Fletcher at ringside, lifted Briscoe all lovely into a brutal looking brainbuster onto a set chair. A match full of crazy bumps and crashes. Back onto the steel steps? Yeah, sure. No worries. Briscoe would moments later dive back first onto a small ladder to have them both in pain. Fletcher's shopping also found a small ladder too, and a round of applause for shouting down a lad who tried to start a "We Want Tables" chant had already not caught on. A crowd that said no, but did earlier sing Seth Rollins' entrance theme at Moxley after the stomp. Kentucky blood flowed as Fletcher whipped the man into said small ladder, and our second match in a row with two bleeders. Briscoe up high through that little ladder at Fletcher to catch and hit a dropkick. Hey, we've already established Kyle's good at catching things. Let's follow that through to his own demise. And you know you're in a bloody match when one man gets the bloody money shot up close to the camera in order to give his opponent the room to get his own red flowing. 6 chairs, all friends in a neat row set by the champion. And you know the rules, whoever sets it gets it. Briscoe up on the corner to dive onto said chairs, but instead got sent through a ringside table he himself had set up during the Kyle Blade. And that table's chanting lad got his money's worth, a second propped up in the corner. And the bump through it was almost like Fletcher was going for an Alabama, but just ran at the table to jump and crash Briscoe through it. It looked awesome. On replay it looked so fun. It's like, that looked like a really fun jump. This is awesome. Called for bucket times. What's in the bucket? It's tax. Got to bring the Briscoe match full circle. But Kyle was the one who set them, so he was the one who got fisherman's busted through them. Briscoe's turn to fetch a weapon brought out a barbed wire table, a standard table, and a bigger ladder. Don't you be coming over here forgetting about that neat line of chairs though. Ladder set, table over the tax, and fought by the chairs for a flipping neckbreaker to crash through them all. Damn boys, motivated Mark into climbing the ladder. Time to do something stupid. Fletcher climbed up too, head butted Groggy, and Froggy Bow crashed through the table with a beautiful balance. The crowd shocked by the kick out, but those silly live attendees had forgotten about the barbed table still to come, and a wee theatre technique of showing the audience Kyle holding a screwdriver, so we knew what Briscoe didn't. Kick to the dick and a screwdriver to the head, you sick fuck, as he then licked said screwdriver. Briscoe's own dick thwack gave us a brainbuster onto the tax, all conditioned and set for a table Froggy, but a ref push stalled top rope action, teasing a brainbuster onto an up-pointed screwdriver pushed up through the turnbuckle. Like bloody hell. Like, they didn't hit it, but bloody hell. Awesome twisting brainbuster got a near fall, but that barbed table was still in the background and someone's got to go through it. Razor's edge off the corner through the bar, but it was the J Driller to end in an emotional final beat to win the title. The crowd popped huge, Mark Briscoe wins, and the commentary are constantly talking about what a lovely moment this is to see the crowd all happy for Mark Briscoe. I won't lie, I really loved the touch of him winning the title, hitting the J Driller. I thought that was a great note, and they had already for ages been telling the story of Kyle Fletcher being way too cocky. They had to know that if Kyle Fletcher had won this, he would have had the title defense reign for the TNT Championship. However, in chasing that, he had overstretched, and the commentary were talking about that in the weeks building up to this show, just constantly hitting on that fact that yes, he's defending his title against these people in open challenges and things on Collision and whatnot, but he's having all these title matches and he's got this DQ thing coming up with Mark Briscoe. Like, is this really that smart? And he got cocky and Mark Briscoe got him, and it was another really fun match. Because I was questioning, what was the point of Wrestle Dream? They must have at some point decided, you know what, let's go for this title thing instead of just doing it here. Have this be Mark Briscoe's genuinely last chance rather than having him win it beforehand. Last week, I did say they've set up the Kyle Fletcher thing to do with Okada. It would be really nice if Kyle Fletcher entered that as champion, but because he got something set up for him, you've immediately got that next program for him. There's not that question of, oh, where's Fletcher going to drop to? No, he's going to slot right into the Okada Takeshita stuff, going right in. And later in the show, they had a segment backstage with all of them falling out. Takeshita, Okada, and Fletcher all announced for the Continental Classic. So there we go. Immediately, he's up there with those two huge guys, and they're all going to be competing in the same tournament. You know what? I'm absolutely grand. What's happened there? The $1 million tag. Josh Alexander and the Young Bucks versus Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express. Bucks with their paid-for Don Callis money entrance, wearing their paid-for by Don Callis money trousers, and posing in front of their paid-for by Don Callis pyro. I'm sure they all knew where their loyalties lied. You know the deal here. A We Bucks party tag right before our final two matches. Odd to call a match like this the needed breather between the Blood and the World titles, but a poppy crowd pleaser was the exact energy boost we needed. No idea how Josh Alexander got busted open during this, but it did make his ankle lock look that bit more menacing. Kick out fun times as shit broke down. The countdown to extinction, breakup got a soft fight forever. The pop was saved for the super kick party right fight after though. Canadians took each other out with a one-winged angel crashing poor Josh down. Perry rolled through, grabbed by the Jacksons and knees driven into the face. The baddies getting the win and the Don Callis family has all the money. Then after the match came the money segment. The Bucks agreed to join the family, but as it went up the ramp, Don Callis was explaining that the plan was to now break Kenny Omega's ankle, like immediately, testing their allegiance. Do they want the money or the friends? Friends! Down for the save, and the Bucks are immediately goodies again. Chose to save Kenny rather than big money Bucks. Really teased out the hug with Kenny. Omega slapped the handshake away, because bring it in, brother. Got a big old hug. So the Bucks aligned with both Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. I don't know how temporary the Jurassic Express thing is, but it could be like a whole new kind of different feel for the Elite. Just a nice little feel-good moment off of a party tag before we get to our important title matches. The first of which, the AEW Women's Championship, Chris Statlander versus Mercedes Moné. An interesting entrance for Chris. Combat rolled out of a little crashed space pod. Like, okay. Mercedes out with her oiled up muscly men all holding her titles. Stat went for a 450 splash, and I've watched enough of Bushi to know what that reaction means. It's time for a full match of arm hurty work times. Mercedes slowly working on it more and more. The crowd stood in applause for the Amigo suplexes that just kept on going in recognition of all of Ultimo's titles. A flow amping up into Stat eventually using her power in spite of the damage each slam or lift did to her arm. That arm gave Moné an in every time Stat got in control, forcing the champion to go big, with an awesome rib breaker driving the poor lass off the top onto her knee. Commentary immediately called it a Dean Malenko thing, but as I finally started watching in 2005, I must have seen Dean Malenko do that, but wasn't watching at the time, so it's not stuck. I used to watch WCW on Daily Motion when it should have been revising all those years ago. But Stat didn't put enough pressure on the pin, then couldn't lift Mercedes up for this Saturday night, and had to alligator roll her to try and find a way to try again. There was then a really cool rollback into just packaged pile driving a woman. Powerbomb spun up into the electric chair, and reverse Rana set up charging double knees for Mercedes. Still not enough. Moné make it a no-go. Driving into the corner went Stat's way, and Saturday Night Fever finally hit to retain. And I cheer for averting a short Stat reign to get Mercedes all her titles. I've thought this with every single Stat title defense so far, that as I'm watching the show, and I feel the most tired of the show whilst I'm watching a Stat title defense, so either there's something off about it, or it's within the momentum of the show, there's something about her matches that don't quite flow with the rest of the show. So every single time I finish one of her matches, I'm like, that felt like it wasn't awful, but I just felt like so just not invested in what was happening, and the crowd sounded really quiet, but that could always just be down to the miking, but it just felt like it was, the crowd were very quiet for this match, like they were tired too. Like the whole thing to do with her arm injury did generally zap a lot of the electricity out of the match, and it never really came back into it. But every single time I finish one of her pay-per-view matches, I'm like, kind of want to watch that outside of watching the full show, because something tells me every single time that I would appreciate it a lot more if I just watched the match and only that match. I thought that for the Tony Storm one, and I thought that about this one here as well. Have I actually done it? No. No, but I get that feeling. I get that feeling just being like, I kind of want to watch this outside of the bubble of the show. Just watch it in isolation by itself. What do I think about it? But gut reaction, I'm recording this like not long after having just finished the show. So my gut reaction is, I wasn't particularly invested. Didn't really draw me in. Felt like the arm injury was by design, kind of sucked the energy out. But I really did like seeing Stat trying to improvise a way to get to the next spot to do. Like when I was talking about when she did the alligator roll. I thought that's like a really cool spot. I was like, oh yeah, we're seeing somebody genuinely try and think up ways to get to her moves without being able to lift with her arm. Like, what would you do? And then we get to the main event. Here's the talking points. Steel Cage, the AEW Championship, Hangman Page versus Samoa Joe. By golly gosh. What happened here then with my most British reaction? Stand fair enough with building corner punches and launching into the cage wall for a bit of head blood. Hangers took off his boot to wallop with. Dark red blood properly thick down Joe's face for the close-up money shot. Hangers got his close-up shot too. As the two danced, they both kept that crimson, but Joe's job especially seemed to just be consistently pouring. And I'm going to jump to the interferences when they began. Shibata came out to be a ringside nuisance, grabbed the AEW Championship and started climbing the cage. Eddie Kingston made the save, ref thrown into the cage, and we got Hanger's visible win. Like, okay, it's shenanigan o'clock, I see. Hobbs just straight up ripped the chain off the cage door and went straight for Page with the championship. But the champion fought him off, and we got our explanation for this whole setup with everybody running out. Like, oh, okay, now this makes sense, as Hangman hit the buckshot via the open door. That space given allowed him to hit the move, but the ref was still down. Then came the second reason. Hook on out and turned villain, revealing he's a baddie. The ops shirt on the man as he struck Hangers with the title. Muscle buster onto the championship, and new AEW champion Samoa Joe. Okay. Okay. So first off, I unfortunately had this spoiled because I did not mute the chat with some people. So I accidentally, as I'm watching the show, So I was a few matches till I got to it. I unfortunately saw it. That's my bad. Should have muted it. So I was watching this match knowing Hangers lost from minute one. So I didn't get that moment of a shock reaction. I already had that earlier, been like, wait, what? They took it off him? Right after I'm singing lyrical last week about how this is just a great little notch for Hangman as a champion and he can go forward into his next defence, like as that truly respected champion. For me, this was the feud where Hangman proved himself to be the man that he was saying he was going to be in those earlier title defences. This was where he was pushed to properly prove it. And at Wrestle Dream, he did. He did prove that. And this felt like a ripple effect, a more violent ripple effect off of what happened in that match. But I then just assumed, okay, Hangman in his previous feuds, talking about establishing the kind of man he wants to be as champion, then against Samoa Joe proved it, then it feels like there's a third act. And I think that's what for me feels like it's the most ripped away part from this. That's why my immediate reaction is, don't know if I would have done that, because I've got my three. I've got my list of three. There's a third act there and it's missing. But it appears AEW's seen it as, well, maybe there is a third act, but it's a third act where he's not the champion. I feel like now, once that he doesn't have the belt, you don't give it back to Hangman. I'm not a huge fan of like a heel temporarily winning the belt and then you give it back to the good guy. It doesn't really work. The absolute worst example we saw was this year from WWE where they gave it to John Cena, had no real plan, and then just realised it wasn't working, flipped it back, gave it back to the good guy. And just the amount of damage that does to your babyface champion, it's absolutely huge. Net negative all around. Like, it's really not worth it. But this here, actually, no, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about what happened before I get a bit too, because there is an after a match, which is very important in terms of, well, what is this setting up? What happens next? Because I've been on team give Hangman a long title reign, and I still am / was. I have no idea what the plan is, but I do love the echo of Revolution 2023 with a certain trio of lads around the title. Yes, I said trio, because once Samoa Joe had his ops crew around him, the lights then went down and had the crowd jumping. On the Tron, a house on fire, Prince Nana in the spotlight, and with a new theme and a big time pay-per-view return style reserved for only the biggest names, Swerve Strickland returned to AEW. The Ops Dojo was set up via a tailgate promo by Joe early in the night, gave Swerve double-digit lads to beat up before flexing his muscles to go off air. It's like, oh, I've not just been lying about since I've been off, I've been at the gym. It's that return gym energy. The man's in shape. Joe won the title, but in return, we got a well and truly aligned Swerve and Hangman. It's like, this is a tough decision in my head. Is that trade worth it? Which do I want more? The long Hangers reign that I've been talking about for the past few months, or the Swerve and Hangman super team truly motivated together as a unit? It's like, that is a difficult choice for me. In terms of what do I want? Especially as if it is Swerve and Hangman going against the Ops, and they, you got all that going on. Maybe there's a third guy. I don't know what Will Ospreay's return was meant to be, but if you really want to make it the super team and you have the three of them, it is an option. Is all I'm saying. If you really want to build off what you were setting up earlier in the year with the heart, the soul, the main character, and then you turn them into an actual super team type of thing, like your own personal Three Musketeers of AEW type of thing, that just, it's not supernatural, but it's more natural than what it felt like with the Pillars. They've got the support behind them first before calling them the Pillars. So it's way more natural in that way. But specifically Swerve and Hangman, just the history of those two characters, it's impossible for me to not look at that and feel super excited for the possibilities of television with those two motivated and aligned together properly. Like that, I will not underestimate how excited that makes me. Just the thought of the story you can tell with that. But I'm torn because I've been banging on for months about giving Hangman a long title reign, and his title reign, from analysing his title reign, it is that point I just made, where it really does feel like there was a third act, and that third act is missing. And that's why it suddenly just feels like an abrupt ending. Samoa Joe was the end of Act 2. So what on earth is happening with Act 3? What on earth is happening here? But yeah, I do personally believe that I'm not a bigger fan of if Samoa Joe holds his title for like a couple months, or if he takes it to Revolution or whatever, then Hangman wins it back. Like, I'm not interested in that really. I don't. You can convince me of stuff like that. The Hangman and Swerve team can be something which really builds and flows to something. But my gut reaction is, once Joe's won the title, I'm not interested in Hangman winning it back. Be it Swerve, be it returning Ospreay, be it whoever. Like, Hangman's had his point now, and you chose to end it early. That's your lookout. That's what you've decided to do. You've made this call to give Swerve's return the biggest gravitas, to get them both truly aligned, so incredibly motivated. You've had Joe do this. You've had his stable become this. I'm torn on it, but I cannot hide my excitement for what they have done for it as well. Yeah, I can see why people are talking about it, because I'm debating it in my own head. I don't know how I feel. This screams the kind of thing that you kind of spend time slowly working on your opinion over the course of time, whilst I'm here not long after I finished watching it being like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. Anyway, that does bring me to the end of the... This was closer to a review this week. It brings me to the end of the show. What did you think of Full Gear? Specifically, what did you think about the main event? I'm so clearly torn on it. And I know how the internet works. You've either got to be super for it or pro against it. So, give me those pro and against shit. Give me that stuff, because, I'm not on Twitter to see it. But anyway, what are your takes on Full Gear? Am I being too kind? Am I not being harsh enough? Or am I being too harsh? And it's actually absolutely fine. Everybody has different opinions. And, it's the internet. So it's either got to be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. You're not allowed to be in between. You cannot be in between. Got to be either extreme. Anyway, I'll be back this time next week to talk about a standard episode of AEW Dynamite and Collision, the fallout from Full Gear. What on earth is the shape going to be like with Joe and his title reign with the ops around him, and with Swerve and Hangman? Which starts off the show? Do we start off with Swerve and Hangman to get the crowd fully behind whatever's happening, or do we start off with the doom and gloom with Samoa Joe? Which would you prefer? How much do you want to echo American society? Just full doom and gloom, or do you want to show the hope and the inspiration first? Which way do you want to go? Anyway, with that, I say thank you for listening, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never take it for granted. I gave you a long one. This is a long one for me. This is a long show. Hope you're happy. Anyway, and with that, I bid you all adieu. Ta-ra. Ta-ra.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.